My name is Noah, and I am 32 years old. The night I proposed to Abigail at Montmartre, our favorite restaurant in Boston, was supposed to be the happiest of my life. Her tearful yes made everything perfect. I immediately texted my family the news, expecting celebration. Instead, my phone pinged with a message from Mom. "We're busy. Send pics." Confused, I opened Facebook and felt my world collapse. Before I continue this story that changed my family forever, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted. I come from what most would consider a privileged background. My parents, Richard and Eleanor Williams, built a successful real estate development company in Massachusetts that afforded us a comfortable lifestyle in an affluent Boston suburb. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect American family. Successful parents, nice house, 2 sons who went to good schools. But inside our home, the dynamics were far more complicated. From as early as I can remember, there was an unspoken hierarchy in our family. My younger brother, Marcus, now 28, was always the golden child. He had a natural charm and confidence that my more reserved personality lacked. While I was studious and careful, Marcus was spontaneous and social. Our parents, particularly our mother, found his personality more engaging, more worthy of attention. "Noah is so responsible, he never gives us any trouble," my mother would tell her friends at country club gatherings. But the way she said it made it sound like being reliable was somehow boring. Meanwhile, Marcus's escapades were told with animated gestures and proud laughter, even when they involved skipping school or minor scrapes with authority. I learned early that my role was to be the dependable one, the son who would handle things and not cause problems. By high school, I was managing my own schedule, helping with the family business during summers, and being the emotional support for my frequently stressed father. Marcus, meanwhile, was given endless second chances and emotional reassurance whenever he struggled. "Your brother needs more guidance," my father once explained when I questioned why Marcus got a new car after wrecking his first one while I had saved for 2 years to buy my used sedan. "You always figure things out on your own." It was meant as a compliment, I suppose, but it just reinforced that I was expected to handle things alone while Marcus received support. Despite this dynamic, I maintained hope that my achievements would eventually earn the same enthusiasm they showed for Marcus's smallest accomplishments. Getting into MIT for computer science, barely registered compared to Marcus making the lacrosse team at a state college. My first job at a prestigious tech firm was acknowledged with polite nods, while Marcus switching majors for the 3rd time warranted a family dinner celebration. I met Abigail Chen at a tech conference in San Francisco 3 years ago. She was presenting on UX design innovations, and I was immediately drawn to her intelligence and quiet confidence. We connected over coffee afterward, discovering shared interests in hiking classic films and a ridiculous love for bad science fiction movies. Unlike the whirlwind relationships Marcus cycled through, Abigail and I built something steady and deep. "She balances you," my friend Daniel observed 6 months into our relationship. "You overthink everything, and she helps you trust your instincts." He was right. Abigail brought spontaneity into my carefully ordered world without pushing me past my comfort zone. When she moved to Boston to be with me, my parents invited us to dinner. I expected them to be impressed by her Stanford education and successful career. Instead, my mother spent the evening questioning why she had left her family in California and making thinly veiled comments about cultural differences. "My parents actually encouraged me to follow my heart," Abigail told my mother with a gracious smile that masked her hurt. I fell a little more in love with her that night for her patience. Despite my family's lukewarm reception, our relationship flourished. After 2.5 years together, I knew she was the one I wanted to spend my life with. I spent 3 months finding the perfect ring, a vintage sapphire surrounded by small diamonds that reminded me of her elegant, unique style. I saved aggressively, wanting to pay for it entirely on my own rather than using the trust fund my grandfather had established for me and Marcus. I planned the proposal meticulously. Montmartre was where we had our first Boston date, and Chef Laurent agreed to help with my plan. I arranged for our favorite table by the window, overlooking the city lights. The ring would arrive hidden in her dessert. Cliché, perhaps, but I knew Abigail would appreciate the romantic gesture. The evening unfolded perfectly. Abigail wore a deep blue dress that brought out the amber flecks in her eyes. We talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing easily as it always did between us. When the chocolate souffle arrived with the ring nestled beside it, her eyes widened in surprise. "Noah," she whispered as I moved to one knee. "Abigail, you brought light and spontaneity into my carefully planned life. Every day with you feels like an adventure I never want to end. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she managed, through her emotion. "Absolutely yes." The restaurant erupted in applause. Chef Laurent appeared with champagne on the house. In that moment, everything felt perfect. I immediately wanted to share our happiness with my family. Despite our complicated relationship, they were still my family, and this was a momentous occasion. I was finally doing what they had been pressing me about for years, settling down, taking that traditional next step. "We should call your parents," Abigail suggested as we sipped our celebratory champagne. I nodded, eagerly anticipating finally receiving the warmth and enthusiasm I had always craved from them. I sent a text to our family group chat, which included my parents and Marcus. She said yes. "Just got engaged to Abigail at Montmartre. So happy right now." I stared at my phone, expecting immediate responses. My mother was usually glued to her phone. The minutes ticked by with no reply. Finally, after 20 minutes, my phone pinged with my mother's response. "We're busy. Send pics." The dismissive tone felt like a bucket of cold water on our perfect evening. Abigail noticed my expression fall. "What is it?" she asked, reaching for my hand. "Nothing," I said, not wanting to ruin our night. "They're busy. Want to send some pictures to your parents instead." Abigail's parents responded immediately with excited messages and a FaceTime call full of congratulations and warm wishes. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. As we left the restaurant, I tried to push away the disappointment. This was still our night, and I wouldn't let my family's indifference spoil it. I had no idea that checking Facebook later would reveal just how deep that indifference went. They must be at some work function, I reasoned as we drove back to our apartment. Abigail nodded, but I could tell she was not convinced. My parents rarely missed responding to important news, especially my mother, who prided herself on maintaining perfect family appearances. "We can celebrate with Daniel and Sophia tomorrow," Abigail suggested, referring to our closest friends. "They will be over the moon for us." I smiled at her attempt to salvage the moment. "Absolutely. Daniel has been pestering me about when I would finally propose. He will be insufferable with his 'I told you so' attitude." Once home, I poured us both a glass of wine as Abigail kicked off her heels and curled up on our couch. She was scrolling through her phone, responding to texts from her friends, who had already seen her new relationship status on social media. The happiness radiating from her made the contrast with my family's response even more painful. Should I check what my parents are so busy with? I wondered aloud, more to myself than to Abigail. She looked up from her phone. "Only if you want to. Do not let it ruin our night." But curiosity and a growing sense of unease prompted me to open Facebook. I rarely used social media, but my cousin Rebecca was an avid poster who tagged family members constantly. If there was a family event, she would have documented it. My stomach dropped as I saw the most recent post on my feed. Posted just 1 hour before my proposal, there were my parents, Marcus, both sets of aunts and uncles, and all my cousins holding wine glasses at Westbrook Vineyard, one of the most exclusive wineries in the region. My mother was beaming her arm around Marcus, while my father stood proudly on his other side. The caption written by Marcus read, "Best day with the best people. Celebrating new beginnings with those who matter most." I scrolled through more photos. There was one of an elaborate lunch spread in the vineyard's private dining room. Another showed my mother giving a toast, champagne flute raised high. The whole family was there, dressed in coordinated cream and blue outfits that suggested this was a planned event, not a spontaneous gathering. Noah, Abigail's voice seemed to come from far away. "What is it?" Wordlessly, I handed her my phone. She looked at the photos, then at me, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to anger on my behalf. They were at a wine tour. "With everyone?" she asked, scrolling through more images. "Was this planned?" "Looks like it," I said, my voice hollow. See how they are all dressed in matching colors. That is my mother's signature move for family photos. She plans the color scheme weeks in advance. Another photo showed Marcus receiving a gift bag with the Vineyard's logo, everyone raising glasses toward him. The timestamp confirmed it was posted right around the time I had texted about our engagement. There must be some explanation, Abigail said, though her tone lacked conviction. Maybe it was a last-minute thing. I shook my head, a cold certainty settling in my chest. No one gets a reservation at Westbrook last minute. And look at the comments. My Aunt Vivian had commented, "Such a wonderful day celebrating with family. So proud of Marcus and his new opportunity." So, there it was. A family celebration for Marcus. A celebration I had not been invited to on the very same day I had gotten engaged. "They knew I was proposing tonight," I said quietly. "I told my mother last week that I had the ring and was taking Abigail to Montmartre this Friday. She said she was excited for us." Abigail set down the phone and moved closer to me on the couch, wrapping her arms around me. "I am so sorry, Noah." "It is fine," I said automatically, the same response I had given all my life when overlooked or dismissed by my family. "It is not important." "It is not fine," Abigail insisted, "and it is important. This was our special night, and they should have been there for you. For us." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. The realization that I had been excluded from a family celebration, that my engagement announcement had been dismissed because they were too busy celebrating Marcus, cut deeper than I wanted to admit. "Should we call them?" Abigail asked gently. "No," I replied, my voice firmer than I expected. "Not tonight." We sat in silence for a while, the joy of our engagement now tainted. Abigail did not push me to talk, just held my hand and occasionally kissed my shoulder, letting me process what had happened. Finally, I picked up my phone again. The family group chat still showed my engagement announcement and my mother's dismissive response. I typed a single word and hit send. "Cheers." Abigail looked at me questioningly. "It is all I can think to say right now," I explained. "Anything more would either be pretending this does not hurt or starting a fight I am not ready for." She nodded in understanding. "What do you want to do now?" "Honestly, I just want to go to bed. We can still celebrate with our friends tomorrow." As we prepared for bed, the contrast between the evening's beginning and end could not have been more stark. We had started the night on top of the world, and now I felt like I was seeing my family clearly for the first time. Abigail fell asleep quickly, emotionally exhausted from the evening's highs and lows. I lay awake beside her, replaying memories from throughout my life, seeing patterns I had long excused or overlooked. This was not an isolated incident. This was the culmination of a lifetime of being secondary in my own family. As the digital clock on our nightstand flipped to 2 in the morning, I made a decision. I would no longer enable this dynamic. Something had to change, and it would start with me. The earliest memory I have of recognizing the difference between how Marcus and I were treated came from my 7th birthday party. My parents had promised a small celebration at the local bowling alley with a few friends. The day before, Marcus, then 3, came down with a mild cold. Nothing serious, just a runny nose and slight fever. "We will have to cancel your party," my mother announced. "Marcus needs a quiet house to recover." When I cried, my father awkwardly patted my shoulder. "Do not be selfish, Noah. Your brother is sick. We will do something another time." That another time never came. 2 weeks later, Marcus was better, and my birthday had been forgotten. By contrast, 3 months later, when it was Marcus's birthday, my mother arranged a petting zoo in our backyard despite me having a sprained wrist from a fall at school. These patterns continued throughout our childhood. Christmas gifts were a stark illustration. I would receive practical items like clothes and books, while Marcus got the latest gaming systems and sports equipment. When I expressed interest in piano lessons at age 10, I was told music lessons were expensive, and I needed to focus on my academics. When Marcus wanted to play hockey at 12, my parents not only paid for private coaching, but adjusted their work schedules to drive him to early morning practices. The most painful disparities came in the form of emotional support. When I struggled with a challenging physics course in high school, my mother's advice was simply, "You are smart. You will figure it out." When Marcus failed algebra the same year, my parents hired a tutor, and my mother sat with him every evening to review his homework. By the time I left for college, I had accepted my place in the family hierarchy. I excelled academically partly out of genuine interest, and partly because achievement was the only area where I received any recognition at all. Even then, my acceptance to MIT was acknowledged with, "That is nice, but it is so far from home." The financial entanglements began during my sophomore year of college. The 2008 recession hit my parents' real estate business hard. Property values plummeted, and several development projects stalled. One evening, my father called me sounding more vulnerable than I had ever heard him. "We need to refinance the mortgage on the house," he explained. "But our credit has taken a hit with the business struggles. The bank needs a co-signer with good credit." At 20 years old, I had built excellent credit through careful management of my student credit card and part-time job income. Without hesitation, I agreed to co-sign. It seemed like the least I could do to help my family through a difficult time. "You are really saving us, son," my father said, his relief palpable. "We will never forget this." But they did forget, or at least never acknowledged it again. The refinanced mortgage was secured, and my name remained on the documents. A legal responsibility I took seriously. Each month I transferred money to their account to help with payments, reducing the amount I could save for my own future. Meanwhile, Marcus had dropped out of community college, citing the need to find himself. My parents funded his 6-month backpacking trip through Europe as a way to gain perspective. When he returned and decided to try college again, they paid his full tuition at a private university known more for its social scene than academics. The pattern continued after graduation. When I landed my job at TechSphere in Boston, I found an affordable apartment and built my life independently. Marcus bounced between jobs, and my parents covered his rent during his transition periods. When he decided to start a clothing brand that failed within a year, they invested $30,000 without hesitation. My grandfather's trust was another source of tension. When he passed away during my senior year of college, he left a substantial trust to be divided between Marcus and me, with the stipulation that we could begin receiving distributions at 25 or upon completion of a college degree, whichever came first. I used my first distribution to pay off my student loans and invested the rest conservatively. Marcus withdrew the maximum amount possible as soon as he qualified, spending it on a luxury car and vacations. When he needed more money 18 months later, my parents approached me. "The trust allows for special distributions for business investments with family approval," my mother explained over dinner one evening. "Marcus has an opportunity to partner in a nightclub downtown." "It sounds risky," I said cautiously. "Has he created a business plan?" My mother's expression hardened. "He needs our support, Noah. Not everyone is as naturally analytical as you are." In the end, I approved the special distribution against my better judgment. The nightclub closed within 10 months, and Marcus's investment evaporated. No one ever mentioned it again. The most significant financial entanglement came 3 years ago when my parents decided to create a family investment fund separate from my grandfather's trust. They asked both Marcus and me to contribute with the idea that pooled resources would allow for better investment opportunities. "This is about building generational wealth," my father explained enthusiastically. "We are stronger together as a family." I contributed 20% of my savings, a substantial amount that I justified as diversifying my investments. Marcus contributed nothing but was given equal access to the fund's benefits. When I questioned this arrangement, my mother said Marcus brings other qualities to the family. "Not everything is about money, Noah." Throughout all these years, I maintained hope that things would eventually balance out, that my parents would recognize my contributions, both financial and emotional, that Marcus might mature and our relationship could evolve into something more equal, that I might finally receive the validation and appreciation I had been seeking since childhood. Abigail was the first person who truly saw this dynamic clearly. 6 months into our relationship, after a particularly dismissive phone call from my mother, she asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. "Noah, What would happen if you stopped being the responsible one? If you stopped helping financially and emotionally without receiving anything in return? I had no answer. The idea of not fulfilling my designated role had never occurred to me. My identity had been built around being reliable, responsible Noah. The one who would always come through when needed, but whose own needs were secondary. As I lay awake the night of our engagement, watching Abigail sleep peacefully beside me, that question returned with new urgency. What would happen if I stopped participating in this one-sided relationship? What would it feel like to prioritize my own life, my future with Abigail over a family dynamic that had never served me? For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine breaking free from these patterns. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. By morning, I knew what I needed to do. When Abigail woke the next morning, she found me at our kitchen table, laptop open, surrounded by financial documents I had pulled from our filing cabinet. "You were up early," she observed, pouring herself a cup of coffee from the pot I had already brewed. "Did you sleep at all?" "Not much," I admitted. "I have been doing some thinking and research." She sat across from me, her expression concerned but supportive. "About your family?" I nodded, pushing a folder toward her. "These are all the financial connections I have with my parents and the family. The mortgage I co-signed and have been helping pay. The family investment fund. My portion of the trust that they have partial administrative control over." Abigail glanced through the documents, her brow furrowing. "This is a lot more than you have mentioned before." "I know. I think I have been downplaying it even to myself." I took a deep breath. I want to disentangle myself from all of it. She looked up sharply. "All of it, Noah. That is a significant decision to make overnight." "It is not overnight," I replied, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "It has been building for years. Yesterday was just the tipping point. I cannot keep participating in a relationship where I give everything and receive nothing." Abigail reached across the table to take my hand. "I support whatever you decide. But maybe you should talk to them first. Clear the air about how you are feeling." I shook my head. "I have tried that approach before. It always ends the same way. I am being too sensitive or misinterpreting things. Or worse, they acknowledge the issue in the moment, but nothing actually changes." I showed her the notes I had made during my sleepless night. A step-by-step plan for removing myself from each financial entanglement. "I am going to need professional help with some of this," I explained. "The mortgage situation is complicated because my name is on it. The trust has legal parameters that need to be navigated carefully." "What about the emotional side?" Abigail asked gently. "Financial separation is one thing, but what about your relationship with them beyond that?" It was the question I had been avoiding. "I do not know yet," I admitted. "Right now, I just need some distance to figure that out. I am not planning to cut them off completely, but I need to establish boundaries." Abigail nodded. "That seems fair. Do you want to call Daniel? He might have recommendations for a good financial advisor." Daniel, my closest friend since college, worked in financial technology and had an extensive professional network. His recommendation led me to Samantha Reeves, a financial advisor who specialized in complex family situations. "Unfortunately, I see cases like yours frequently," Samantha told me during our consultation later that day. "Family and finances can create difficult entanglements. The good news is that everything can be untangled with the right approach." She recommended a three-pronged strategy. First, remove my name from the family trust through a formal withdrawal petition. Second, establish a separate account for the mortgage payments that would fulfill my legal obligation without giving my parents direct access to my funds. And third, document all past contributions to create a clear financial history. "You should also consult with a lawyer," she advised, "especially regarding the mortgage situation. You want to protect yourself while fulfilling your legal obligations." The lawyer Samantha recommended, Michael Patel, was direct and practical. "The mortgage is the most complicated aspect," he confirmed after reviewing my documents. "You cannot simply remove yourself as a co-signer without refinancing which would require your parents' cooperation. What are my options if they refuse to cooperate? I asked. You can establish an escrow account that makes the minimum required payments directly to the mortgage holder, he explained. This protects you legally while limiting your parents' access to additional funds. It is not ideal, but it creates a buffer while a more permanent solution is negotiated. Over the next 3 days, I executed each step of the plan methodically. I submitted the formal withdrawal petition from the family trust, established the mortgage escrow account, and froze the automatic transfers to the family investment fund. Michael helped me draft official notices to be sent to my parents explaining the legal and financial changes. Throughout this process, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from my family. I had not responded to any of them, needing the emotional space to follow through with my plan. The first messages were mundane. My mother asking if we had set a wedding date, yet my father sharing a news article about the tech industry. No acknowledgement of the vineyard celebration or their absence during our engagement. Abigail was my rock during these days. She took care of practical matters around our apartment, fielded congratulatory calls from friends, and gave me the space I needed while remaining a steady, supportive presence. Your friends want to take us out to celebrate tomorrow night, she told me on the third evening as we ate takeout dinner in our living room. I told them we would let them know. How are you feeling about socializing? Actually, I think it would be good, I replied. I could use the reminder that there are people who genuinely care about us. Daniel and Sophia hosted a small gathering at their apartment the following night. Our closest friends surrounded us with sincere happiness for our engagement, sharing stories and toasting our future. For a few hours, I was able to set aside the family situation and simply enjoy being with people who valued me for who I was. As we were leaving, Daniel pulled me aside. Everything okay? You seem a bit distracted. Briefly, I explained what had happened with my family and the steps I was taking. Daniel whistled low. That is a big move, but honestly, long overdue. We have all seen how they treat you, Noah. You deserve better. His validation meant more than I expected. Thanks. I am still figuring out what happens next. Whatever it is, you have got us in your corner, he assured me, pulling me into a quick hug. By the 6th day, the notifications from the bank and lawyers would have reached my parents. My withdrawal from the family trust would be processing. The mortgage payment account would show the changed access permissions. The family investment fund would reflect my frozen contributions. I knew it was only a matter of time before someone showed up at my door. When the building security called to announce my father's arrival, I was ready. The immediate aftermath of my financial decisions brought a cascade of responses from my family, each revealing the true nature of our relationships more clearly than any previous interaction. Marcus was the first to call barely 24 hours after I had submitted the trust withdrawal paperwork. I watched his name flash on my phone screen but let it go to voicemail. His message was exactly what I expected. Noah, what the hell? Mom is freaking out about some notice from the family trust. Call her back and fix whatever this is. I do not have time to deal with her panic mode right now. No mention of my engagement. No acknowledgement of the vineyard celebration I had been excluded from. Just the expectation that I would, as always, handle the difficult situation and smooth things over. My mother's voicemails evolved over the next several days. The first was coldly formal. Noah, we received some concerning paperwork regarding the trust. Please call me back immediately to discuss this misunderstanding. By the third day, her tone had shifted to wounded indignation. I cannot believe you would make these financial changes without discussing them with the family first. This is not how we raised you to behave. Your father is very disappointed. The fourth day brought emotional manipulation. I have not been able to sleep worrying about this situation. Is this because of that girl? Are you letting her influence you against your family? My father's approach was different. His messages started with confusion. Son, there seems to be some issue with the accounts. The bank called with questions I do not understand. Can you please explain what is happening? Later messages revealed growing concern. Noah, whatever is bothering you, we can talk about it. But these financial changes affect all of us. The mortgage payment notification has me worried. On the fifth day, the family lawyer Gerald Winston, who had handled my family's affairs for decades, called. I had anticipated this and prepared accordingly. Noah, this is Gerald Winston. Your parents have asked me to reach out regarding some concerning financial activities. I would like to schedule a meeting to discuss the implications of your recent decisions. I had Michael, my own lawyer, return the call. This was no longer a family matter, but a legal one, and I needed professional representation. Michael later reported that the conversation had been tense but productive. I made it clear that your decisions are legally sound and within your rights, Michael explained. Mr. Winston was primarily concerned about the trust withdrawal and its impact on the family investment structure. I emphasized that you are fulfilling all legal obligations regarding the mortgage. How did he respond? I asked. He was surprised that you had engaged separate legal counsel, Michael admitted. I think your family is accustomed to handling matters internally with Mr. Winston representing everyone's interests. That was part of the problem, I noted. My interests were never the priority. Abigail watched these developments with concern. Are you sure you do not want to just talk to them? She asked one evening. This legal back and forth seems so formal for a family matter. That is exactly why it needs to be formal, I explained. Every time I have tried to address issues emotionally, my feelings get dismissed or minimized. This way, there is a clear record of decisions and consequences. She nodded, though I could tell she was worried about potential permanent damage to my family relationships. Abigail came from a close-knit family, where disagreements were discussed openly and resolved through conversation. The legal and financial approach I was taking was foreign to her experience. I just do not want you to burn bridges you might later wish you had maintained, she said. I am not burning the bridge, I replied, after considering her words. I am just stopping traffic from only going one way across it. On the morning of the sixth day, I received a call from the building security desk. Mr. Williams, your father is here requesting access to your apartment. Would you like me to send him up? I took a deep breath. This was the confrontation I had been preparing for. Yes, please. Let him up. Thank you. Abigail, who had been preparing to leave for a meeting with a client, hesitated at the door. Do you want me to stay? I shook my head. This is something I need to handle myself. But thank you. Call me if you need me, she said, kissing me briefly before leaving. I spent the next few minutes centering myself, reviewing the points I wanted to make, and reminding myself of the boundaries I needed to establish. When the knock came, I was ready. Opening the door revealed my father standing there, his face flushed with a mixture of anger and confusion. Richard Williams, once an imposing figure in my childhood, now looked older and somehow smaller than I remembered. His normally perfectly styled silver hair was slightly disheveled, and his expensive dress shirt was wrinkled, signs of his distress that would have been unthinkable in normal circumstances. Noah, he said, his voice strained with controlled emotion. We need to talk. Come in, Dad, I said, stepping aside to let him enter. My voice was steadier than I expected, a calmness born from certainty rather than indifference. My father walked into the apartment, his eyes darting around as if searching for clues to explain my behavior. He had only visited twice before, despite Abigail and I living here for over a year. The unfamiliarity seemed to unsettle him further. Would you like some coffee? I offered, maintaining the polite demeanor that had been ingrained in me since childhood. I did not come for coffee, Noah, he snapped, then immediately seemed to regret his tone. He took a deep breath. What is going on with you? Your mother is beside herself. The bank called about mortgage payment changes. Gerald is telling us you have withdrawn from the family trust, and now we find out you have your own lawyer, and you have been ignoring our calls for days. I gestured toward the living room. Let us sit down and talk about it. Reluctantly, he followed me and took a seat on the edge of the couch, his posture rigid with tension. I sat in the armchair across from him, intentionally choosing not to sit beside him to maintain my emotional boundaries. First, congratulations on your engagement, he said stiffly, as if just remembering the event that had triggered everything. Your mother and I are very happy for you. Are you? I asked quietly. Because your actions suggest otherwise. His brow furrowed. What is that supposed to mean? Dad, I told Mom last week that I was proposing to Abigail on Friday night. I was excited to share that moment with my family. Instead, you were all at Westbrook Vineyard celebrating with Marcus, an event I was not invited to or even told about. His expression shifted from confusion to discomfort. That was just a small family gathering for Marcus. He got a new position at Lockhart Investments. It came together quickly. A small gathering that included every member of our extended family except me, I pointed out, in coordinated outfits for photos, with reservations at one of the most exclusive vineyards in the region. That does not happen spontaneously, Dad. He shifted uncomfortably. Your mother handled the arrangements. I assumed you were invited but could not make it. I was never told about it, I said firmly. And when I texted everyone that Abigail had said yes, Mom's only response was, "We're busy. Send pics." On what should have been one of the happiest moments of my life. My father had the grace to look embarrassed. That was unfortunate timing. Your mother was caught up in the celebration for Marcus. It was not unfortunate timing, I countered. It was a pattern that has existed my entire life. One that I have finally decided to stop participating in. I reached for a folder on the coffee table and removed a stack of documents I had prepared. This is a record of every financial contribution I have made to the family over the past 12 years. Co-signing the mortgage during the recession. Monthly contributions to the mortgage payments. My investments in the family fund. Loans to Marcus that were never repaid. My father glanced at the documents but did not take them. Family helps family, Noah. That is what we do. Except it only goes one way, I replied. I help. I contribute. I show up. Meanwhile, I am excluded from family events, my achievements are downplayed, and my engagement is dismissed as an inconvenient interruption to celebrating Marcus. You are being overly sensitive, he said, falling back on the familiar dismissal. No one meant to hurt your feelings. That is exactly the problem, I said, my voice still calm but firm. No one considers my feelings at all. And I have allowed that dynamic for too long. I handed him another document. This outlines the changes I have made. I have withdrawn from the family trust, which is my legal right. I have established an escrow account that will continue making the minimum required payments on the mortgage I co-signed, fulfilling my legal obligation without giving unlimited access to my finances. And I have frozen my contributions to the family investment fund, pending a full accounting of how those funds have been used. My father scanned the document, his face growing redder. This is not how family matters should be handled. With lawyers and formal notices, we should be able to talk about these things. I have tried talking for years, I replied. Every attempt to discuss the imbalance in our family was met with dismissal or deflection. This approach ensures my concerns cannot be ignored. He set the paper down with controlled anger. Is this about money? Are you having financial problems? No, Dad. It is about respect. About being valued as a member of this family, rather than just a resource to be tapped when convenient. So you are punishing us financially because your feelings are hurt. His tone was incredulous. I am establishing boundaries, I corrected. Healthy relationships require boundaries. For too long I have had none with this family. My father stood abruptly, pacing the small living room. Your mother was right. This is about that girl. Abigail has turned you against your family. I had anticipated this deflection. Abigail has nothing to do with this decision. In fact, she encouraged me to talk to you directly before taking these steps. She comes from a family where people actually communicate with each other. And we do not, he challenged. No, Dad, we do not. We pretend everything is fine while maintaining the same dysfunctional patterns. Marcus is favored and protected. I am taken for granted and expected to handle everything without complaint. Mom manipulates situations to maintain control. And you stand by and let it happen. The bluntness of my assessment seemed to shock him. For a moment he looked genuinely hurt. Is that really how you see us? How you see me? He asked, his voice quieter. It is how things have been, I said, softening my tone slightly. Maybe not intentionally, but consistently. The vineyard celebration was just the final confirmation of what I have always known but tried to ignore. He sat back down heavily. Noah, whatever grievances you have, this financial approach is extreme. The trust withdrawal affects long-term family planning. The mortgage situation puts your mother and me in a difficult position. I understand that, I acknowledged. But this was the only way to ensure my concerns would be taken seriously. I am not abandoning my responsibilities. The escrow account guarantees the mortgage payments will continue. But I need to prioritize my future with Abigail now. My father was silent for a long moment, processing everything I had said. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted from anger to negotiation. What would it take to undo these changes? To go back to the way things were? I shook my head. That is not what I want. I do not want to go back to the way things were. That arrangement was not working for me. Then what do you want? He asked, frustration evident in his voice. I want to be treated with the same consideration and respect that Marcus receives. I want my achievements and life events to be celebrated, not dismissed. I want a relationship based on genuine connection, not financial utility. And I want acknowledgement of the patterns that have hurt me for years. He sighed deeply. You know your mother struggles with these kinds of emotional discussions. That is not my responsibility to manage anymore, I replied firmly. I have spent my life accommodating everyone else's needs and feelings while suppressing my own. That ends now. My father stood again, looking tired and defeated. I need to discuss this with your mother and Gerald. There are financial implications we need to address. I understand, I said, rising as well. Michael Patel is representing my interests. He can coordinate with Gerald on the legal details. At the door, my father turned back to me. Noah, despite what you believe, we do love you. You have always been the one we could count on. That is the problem, Dad, I replied quietly. I have been reliable and responsible my whole life. But that does not mean I should be taken for granted. I have been managing without your emotional support for years. I will be fine without your financial connections too. Something in my words seemed to finally reach him. For a brief moment I saw genuine regret in his eyes before he nodded stiffly and left. As the door closed behind him, I felt a curious mixture of exhaustion and liberation. For the first time in my life, I had stood my ground with my family and articulated my needs clearly. Whether it would lead to meaningful change remained to be seen, but I had taken the first critical step toward a healthier relationship with both my family and myself. The immediate aftermath of my confrontation with my father left me feeling strangely hollow. The adrenaline that had carried me through the conversation drained away, leaving uncertainty in its wake. Had I gone too far? Not far enough. Would this lead to positive change or permanent estrangement? Abigail returned home that evening to find me sitting quietly on our balcony watching the sunset over Boston's skyline. How did it go? She asked, settling into the chair beside mine. Better than I expected in some ways, worse in others, I replied. He actually listened, which was new. But he also tried to blame you for changing me. She smiled wryly. I figured that might happen. The outsider is always an easy target. I made it clear you had nothing to do with my decision, I assured her. If anything, you have been more understanding of them than I have. Over the next few weeks, an uneasy quiet settled over my relationship with my family. My mother attempted to call several times, but her voicemails continued the pattern of emotional manipulation rather than addressing the real issues. I responded with brief, polite texts, maintaining boundaries while not cutting contact completely. Marcus surprised me by showing up at my office one afternoon about 3 weeks after my confrontation with our father. Got a minute, he asked, hovering awkwardly in my office doorway. He looked uncharacteristically subdued, his usual confident demeanor replaced by uncertainty. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Sure. He sat down, fidgeting with his watch strap. Dad told me about your conversation. And the trust withdrawal. I figured he would, I replied neutrally. Look, I did not know you were not invited to the vineyard thing, Marcus said, not quite meeting my eyes. Mom said you were busy with work and could not make it. I was not entirely surprised. That was not true. I was never told about it at all. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I am getting that now. And the timing with your engagement, that was bad. I should have reached out that night when you texted. Congratulations, by the way. Thank you, I said, uncertain where this conversation was heading. Marcus sighed heavily. I am not good at this stuff, Noah. The emotional conversations. But I want you to know, I never intentionally tried to create this situation between us. I know that I acknowledged. This was not about you and me directly. It was about patterns in our family that have existed since we were kids. The golden child and the responsible one, he said with unexpected self-awareness. I have benefited from that dynamic my whole life. His candor surprised me. You recognized it. Not until recently, he admitted. When Dad explained why you pulled out of the family finances, it forced me to look at things differently. I never considered how it felt from your perspective. We talked for nearly an hour more openly than we ever had before. Marcus shared his own insecurities, how he had always felt he could never measure up to my academic achievements and responsible nature, which had led him to seek validation in other ways. I explained how the constant emotional and financial imbalance had gradually eroded my sense of belonging in the family. I cannot fix Mom and Dad, Marcus said as he prepared to leave. But I can work on how you and I relate to each other. If you are willing. I would like that, I replied sincerely. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. As 6 months passed, the landscape of my family relationships continued to evolve. My father made halting efforts to connect more genuinely, occasionally calling just to check in, rather than to discuss financial matters. These conversations were sometimes awkward, but represented progress from where we had been. My mother remained the most resistant to change. She alternated between cold formality and attempts to re-establish the old dynamic. When these approaches failed, she tried to use wedding planning as a way to reassert control. I have reserved the country club for next June, she announced during one of our rare phone conversations. The Williams family always has summer weddings. Thank you, but Abigail and I have already decided on a small ceremony at her parents' property in California next spring, I replied firmly. Her disapproval was palpable. You cannot be serious. What will people think? The Williams family has traditions to maintain. This is our wedding, Mom. It will reflect our preferences, not family traditions. Planning our wedding became a powerful exercise in maintaining boundaries. Each decision Abigail and I made represented our values and vision for our future together, not the expectations of others. We chose a modest ceremony with only our closest friends and Abigail's supportive family in attendance. My mother declined to attend, claiming the travel would be too difficult. My father came alone, looking uncomfortable but making a genuine effort to connect with Abigail's parents and participate in the celebration. Marcus served as my best man, a role that symbolized our healing relationship. The wedding day itself was perfect in its simplicity and authenticity. Under a canopy of redwood trees on her parents' Northern California property, Abigail and I exchanged vows we had written ourselves. Surrounded by people who truly celebrated our love and happiness, I felt a completeness I had never experienced within my family of origin. You look peaceful, Daniel observed during the reception. Like you have finally put down a heavy weight you have been carrying. That is exactly how it feels, I agreed. I never realized how exhausting it was to constantly seek approval that was never going to come. The months following our wedding brought further evolution in my family dynamics. My father and I established a cautious new relationship built on more equal footing. Our conversations became more honest, though we carefully avoided certain sensitive topics. My mother remained distant, occasionally sending formal emails or impersonal gifts for birthdays and holidays. Her inability to acknowledge any role in our strained relationship created a natural limitation on how close we could become. Marcus continued to surprise me with his growth. He sought therapy to address his own issues, stemming from our family patterns, and took steps toward greater independence from our parents, both financially and emotionally. The family trust and investment matters were eventually resolved through our respective lawyers. I maintained the separate escrow account for the mortgage payments, creating a clear boundary between my obligation and my parents' access to my finances. Throughout this period of family reconfiguration, Abigail remained my steadfast support. She neither pushed me toward reconciliation nor encouraged complete estrangement, instead supporting my need to find my own path. Her own family welcomed me warmly, showing me what healthy family dynamics could look like. Therapy became an important part of my healing journey. Through those sessions, I gained clarity about the patterns I had internalized and the work needed to create healthier relationships. Most importantly, I learned that establishing boundaries was not selfish, but necessary for emotional well-being. The greatest lesson I have learned, I told my therapist during one session, is that you cannot change other people. You can only change how you respond to them. And how has that changed your life, she asked. I no longer measure my worth by their validation. I replied after consideration. I can love my family without needing them to be different than they are. And I can protect myself from patterns that hurt me. 2 years after that pivotal engagement night, Abigail and I welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Eliza. Holding her in my arms, I made a silent promise that she would always know her worth was not tied to achievement or utility, that she would be loved, unconditionally celebrated for her unique self, and supported in setting healthy boundaries. My father has become a surprisingly devoted grandfather, visiting regularly and showing Eliza the warmth and attention I had always craved. My mother maintains a more distant relationship, though she has softened somewhat in response to her granddaughter. Marcus has embraced his role as uncle, with enthusiasm, showing a gentleness I never saw in him before. Our family gatherings now are smaller, less frequent, and have clearer expectations. I no longer expect perfect resolution or complete understanding. Instead, I accept the complicated reality of family relationships while protecting the boundaries that keep me healthy. The journey from that text message on my engagement night to where I am now has been challenging, but transformative. By refusing to participate in unhealthy patterns and standing firm in my own worth, I created space for more authentic connections, both with my family of origin and the family Abigail and I are building together. True family, I have learned, is not defined by obligation or tradition, but by mutual respect, genuine care, and the freedom to be your authentic self. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the greatest healing, and sometimes the family you choose becomes as important as the family you were born into. What about you? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members to protect your well-being? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength through life's challenges. And if you know someone struggling with family boundaries, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we are not alone in these experiences is the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening to my story.